Today's episode of Book and Bake is brought to you by my hair slowly drying throughout the course of this video, making me look less and less like a drowned rat, because if I wait for it to be completely dry before I start filming, it will be nighttime and I'll be baking this cake until like 4 o'clock in the morning. Hi everyone, Rosie here. Welcome back to my channel. As I told you, as you just saw in the thumbnail, it's another episode of Book and Bake. I haven't done one of these in quite a while, but basically I want to make this cake. I thought it'd be fun to make a video about it, so I read a book that I thought I could tangentially link to it. I'm making a red velvet cake. I've never made red velvet before. I've actually never even eaten red velvet, so that's going to be fun. It's an experiment. Using food coloring, which is not something I usually do. And I'm going to talk about Fangs by Sarah Andersen. So I've just started by measuring out my dry ingredients, and now I have whisked them together. Look, here we go. As I said, it's all an experiment, it's all fun, and I hope that we will have a good time baking and also, as I said, talking about Fangs by Sarah Andersen. So this is ready. Let's get the mixer out, and while I do all that creaming together stuff, we'll talk about what exactly is this book that I have just told you I'm going to talk about. I forgot to mention, I'm using the Sally's Baking Addiction red velvet with cheesecake icing recipe. I will link that down below. Also, did I explain why I'm making red velvet? No, but it will make more sense in a moment when I explain what this book is about, so I'm going to save that. So, what is Fangs about? It's a graphic, I thought it was a graphic novel. I'm not sure if I would describe it as that now that I've read it. It's really a very short series of vignettes about a goth vampire girl and a kind of hipster werewolf guy who meet in a bar and fall in love. I read it yesterday and I'm already finding it hard to describe. I'm already going, I don't know how to talk about this book and describe what it is. I think you sort of just have to pick it up and flip through it. Maybe I'll insert some images or photos or something of like some of the art style, but it's cute, it's short, it's funny. It's about these two people monsters who meet and fall in love. There's really not that much more to it, which is something that I will get to in just a moment. But for now, I need to do a bit more of mixing in. Also, I probably should have written all of this out beforehand. I'm actually making a half recipe because my partner does not like cream cheese frosting and I am only one person, so there's only so much cake I can eat. Hopefully I won't make any mistakes in having the ingredients as I go, but we'll see. So I said I would explain why I'm making a red velvet cake with cream cheese frosting once I'd explained what the book was about, which, as I said, vampire, werewolf, in love, very cute. So basically, one, I wanted to make a red velvet cake with cheesecake frosting. It was something I was interested in trying to make, so that was off to a strong start. But then I was like, well, it's perfect because she's a vampire, so she eats blood, and also she's super pale, so like bloody inside, pale on the outside with the white cream cheese frosting. Amazing. But I'm gonna make it even better because I'm gonna cut the cake. Hopefully this turns out and it's not a disaster, but I'm gonna try and cut the cake into the shape of a bone. So it's like all red and bloody for the vampire, but it's bone shaped for the werewolf. I'm gonna go get my template that I made last night and show it to you. It's gonna be the world's smallest cake because, as I said, it's just for me. So I'm gonna do 2 layers and I'm gonna cut them out. I made these little templates, and once the cake is like baked and cooled, I'm gonna put the template on top and cut around it. And the vision I have in my head is going to be so adorable, so we'll see. But like, you guys know, these books and bake. I want to talk about a book, and also I like baking stuff, so I'm gonna jam them together whether it makes sense or not. Okay, now that the wet ingredients are really thoroughly combined, it's time to take the dry ingredients that I mixed up earlier, and we're gonna add them into the wet ingredients in a couple goes. I think I'm gonna do 3 of dry and then 2 of buttermilk. So the recipe calls for buttermilk, but as most of you probably know, if you can't be bothered to use up the rest of a liter of buttermilk because there's only so many waffles that a person can make, you can just use regular milk with some vinegar in it. So that's what I did. As I beat this stuff together, we come to a challenging point of this review, which is that usually I like to take each part of a recipe and review a different part of the book. So maybe I'll talk about things I liked in one part, things I didn't like, or specific themes, or whatever. I've done this before for novels, I've done it before for nonfiction. I found it worked really well for both. It was really fun. And I thought that this book was going to be very much like a graphic novel. So even if it was only like 100 or 150 pages, it's got like a quite thick cover, so I think I thought it was longer than it was. I thought there was going to be like a story that I could review. Unfortunately, that's not really the case. It's sweet, it's charming, it was delightful, I found it laugh out loud funny, and I absolutely adored it. But there's not a lot of substance to review. Maybe I would feel differently if I reread it, but it's, as I said in my description, I think, very much a series of like snapshots or vignettes. It feels like we're checking in on these characters, seeing little moments here, but each page is its own little moment. And they're all sweet and cute and charming, but there's not a super strong overarching story. Or there's the story of them going from meeting to like being in love and in like a committed relationship, but there's not like plot or tension or like, and now this happens. It's much more just this story of two people having cute moments together. I absolutely loved it. I think it was so cute. I will definitely flip through it again. I will definitely read it again, but there's not a ton to review. I can say that the art style is incredible. It's so cute. I absolutely love how it's drawn. I love how much of a sense of character we get from them, despite the fact that it's so short and it's so, like, simple. It's really good. There's just not a lot to break down. So let's move on to adding some food coloring, which is exciting, because as I said, I've never used food coloring before. I got liquid food coloring because I grabbed it at the grocery store, and then reading everything afterwards, I'm like, I probably should have got gel, but you know what? I'm sure it'll be fine. And if you're noticing that the B-roll is very repetitive today, that is because Bear is upstairs on a video call with a friend, and usually he films a lot of the B-roll for these because it's really hard to bake one-handed. Hopefully it's working out okay. This needs a lot of food coloring. It says a tablespoon for the full batch, at least. So I'm just gonna do a rough half tablespoon. I figure if it says at least, it's not a super precise measurement. It's basically just like put in as much red food coloring as you want until it looks the color you want. So I'm gonna start with a generous half tablespoon and let's see how this goes. Now, this bottle of food coloring clearly says red. The lid, clearly red. Would we call this red? I mean, maybe it's because the batter was light brown to begin with, but this is definitely pink, and I've already added more than the initial half tablespoon. I think I'm at close to a tablespoon of food coloring now. I don't know. I think I'm gonna add a bit more and try and intensify the color a bit, but I don't want to add too much more, or I think it might start affecting the taste. Like, I've already put in probably, I don't know, a third of the bottle, if not almost half, so that's a lot of food coloring. All right, I think this is as red as I'm gonna get it, and I don't dare add any more food coloring, so now I need to do a bit of a switcheroo. This recipe calls for folding beaten egg whites into the cake batter, so I've got cake batter. It's pink, it's not red, but that's not the recipe's fault, that's the food coloring's fault, I think, and who knows? Maybe it'll turn red in the oven. Baking is a mysterious science, but I need to do a switcheroo because I need to beat the eggs. Now, there was no way I was going to make all this cake batter by hand. I'm too lazy for that. Also, there is no way I'm beating eggs by hand. See, lazy. So what I'm going to do is scrape all of the cake batter into a large, just regular mixing bowl, wash my mixer bowl, beat the eggs, and then I'll use just the big bowl to fold them in because that's the last step before it bakes. Hey, if you're watching this, I want you to know that since you're not a Booktube newbie tag, where you made the joke about what is Booktube and talked about all of the things that we talk about on here that aren't books, including food, I just want you to know that now every time I'm doing something food related in a video, which is shockingly often, I think about that, and I don't have a rebuttal. It's not books, it is food. Nominally, this is a book review. It's just a very creative form. You dress up in like 4 different costumes and have conversations with yourself in your book stuff. So my book review involves making cake. I think that's a soft peek. We're going to assume it's good. Okay, so one of the things I did want to talk about with this book is that it's neither a good thing nor a bad thing. It's that it's not exactly what I expected. I don't know why, but for some reason I thought this was going to be about a vampire and a werewolf who were like actually really monstrous. Like we were gonna see them killing people or like, yeah, just have like a lot more violence than this book actually had. So yeah, for some reason I thought that this was going to be about much more brutal monsters than it was. And, you know, I'm not saying that they're total cuddly teddy bears never hurt anyone. The vampire doesn't feed off live humans. She steals from the blood bank. I guess I sort of thought we were gonna see them, like, yeah, killing people. And I think it's implied that, like, the werewolf kills animals, but we don't really see a lot of violence or anything, and that's fine. It was, like I said, I really liked this book. It was really cute, it was sweet, it was charming. There's a lot of jokes about being dark, being monsters, you know, what they find funny, what they find amusing, sort of thing. A regular human could make a lot of the jokes that they make, and it wouldn't look that weird, I guess. I mean, obviously some of the stuff would be disturbing and like they are monsters, but if you are looking for a book that's very much like graphic monster violence type thing, this is not it. Well, I just poured cake batter into a cake tin in the most awkward way possible, only to realize that I wasn't recording. So that's a letdown, but the cake is now in the oven. It's gonna bake for a while, then it needs to cool completely before we can ice it. So I'll see you in just a sec. All right, we've arrived at the part of this baking project that I'm both the most excited about and the most scared of. I've actually already made the cream cheese icing and it's chilling in the fridge. You guys have seen me make cream cheese icing before. See my, what vlog was it? My book and bake for my 1-year Booktube anniversary, which will be linked up here if you want to know more about that. This is just a basic plain cream cheese icing this time. Recipe will be in the link, of course, but I figure I'm running out of things to say about this book, so let's get on to the actual like shaping and decorating. So let's see, what do we have? We have a cake. It's kind of domed on top, not as domed as when I first took it out of the oven. It has collapsed down a little bit. I don't know if that's a good sign or not. Anyway, we have a cake. I've got a bread knife and I'm gonna try and cut the top off the cake. Then I'm going to go in and cut out my 2 little bone shapes. And don't worry, the scraps of this cake, blah, 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 that don't make it into like the final cake will go to good use. My partner assures me that he loves cake scraps and does not mind them at all. And also, obviously I'm not throwing out cake. Come on, what kind of monster do you think I am? All right, so as you guys just saw, it's not what I would call red. This is at best a dark pink, kind of purple. Maybe it's very on brand. It is kind of purple. But again, that's no fault of the recipe. And honestly, I don't think it's my fault either. I think it's the food dye that was very magenta, not red. I think it looks moist. You know what we're gonna do? Let's try a little piece. We're gonna hand some off to Bear, who's behind the camera. You might have noticed that was a much better B-roll shot. It's because he's done with this call now. Hard to say because that was like a top crust bit. I think it was fine. It's not what I would call a spectacular cake, but it was a fine little piece of cake. No objections. So now I think it's time for the part that I'm most excited about, which is cutting it into 2 little bones. What I'm gonna do is put these little stencils that I made on top of the cake and then cut around them with a paring knife. I think that's the best way to do this. Some of you maybe know more about cakes. Let me know down below in the comments if you think I should take a different technique, but let's get shaping. Okay, this is going all right, I think. Now it's time to assemble. This cake is adorable and tiny. I have a little like cake stand turntable thing. It's a Christmas present from my mother-in-law. So I'm gonna use that because why not? I never make like layer cakes because the last 1.5 years since I really got serious about baking, it's just been Bear and I, and there's only so much cake that 2 people can eat. If I'm making cake, usually I make cupcakes because they last better. Anyways, I really want to use this. I really want to make a layer cake, hence the world's tiniest layer cake. So, okay, I've got to lift one of these up. I think I'll put the crust side down, ice the top, then put the other crust side upside down. It makes sense, I think. I should probably be piping my icing right now and like getting it in a piping bag and piping it on then spreading, but frankly I'm too lazy. And I thought about doing a crumb coat, which is where you like cover it all in a thin layer of icing and then chill it, then put your icing on. Like the crumbs get caught in the first coat and they don't come through in the second. Again, I think I'm too lazy. I just kind of want to get this done. This is theoretically a book review, so I guess I should say a few more things about the book that I read. I want to get to my main, like, it's not exactly a complaint, but it's my main negative thought about this book and this reading experience. And that is quite frankly, that it's just too short. Like, it's great. The only issue is that there is so little of it. I really would have rather have a book that was 3 or 4 times as long and had just a lot more story in it. We're seeing little moments, and they were great little moments, but I would have loved an actual plot. I would have loved to actually really get into this and really follow along with this story. For me, that would have been so interesting, and it just wasn't there at all, which I guess that's not what the author wanted to do. And of course, it's the author's book. They should do what they want to do with their book. But for me, that was the real drawback. It was really that, where's the rest of it? Okay, so we've got a nice thick layer of center icing. I don't know if it's too thin or too thick. As I said, I've never made a layer cake before. These are really thick pieces of cake. So maybe it's too thin. I don't know. It's a very moist cake, so I'm sure it'll be fine. And now it's time to put the other piece on, for which I'm going to put the camera down and then I'll show you what it looks like in just a sec. Okay, so this is what it looks like with the second layer on. This is what I meant. Like this was on the cake pan, so it's a bit firmer, and I think that might make it easier to ice over top. The sides had to be cut. Anyways, let's do a time lapse of me trying to ice this. Maybe it'll be hilarious, maybe it'll be great. Okay, what have we learned here? 1, I absolutely needed to do a crumb coat and it was a mistake not to. 2, I need to figure out why my cream cheese frosting is always so soft. Maybe that's just how cream cheese frosting is, but it always turns out delicious, but like barely even spreadable because it's so soft. So I need to investigate that. I think I'm gonna put this cake on a plate, take a thumbnail photo, then I'll be back in just a moment to try it and close out this video. As you can see, I've got a little slice of cake. It's lopsided, it's a bit sloppy, but the taste is what counts here, so let's see how it turned out. Okay, got a nice big bite. It's good. It's cake with cheesecake with cream cheese frosting. Like, what's not to like? The chocolate flavor is really subtle. I don't think I'm actually really getting any chocolate because the cream cheese frosting the flavor of that is so much stronger, but it's good. I'm definitely going to enjoy it, and I've definitely learned lessons for the next layer cake that I make, so that'll be fun. And Fangs by Sarah Andersen. This book was so cute. It was so sweet. I hopefully have put some photos in an overlay. Hopefully editing Rosie won't be too lazy, so if it looks cute, check it out, pick it up. It's a sweet book. It's a gorgeous book, but it didn't quite have the substance that I wanted from it. I don't really have much more to say about that. There's not much more to say, so let me know down below. Are you guys red velvet fans? Or in this case, pink velvet fans? And are books that are just like, I want to say brain candy almost, are those things you enjoy, or do you tend to find them a little bit frustrating and you want a bit more? And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like down below. If you would like to see more of my videos, please hit subscribe, and thank you for watching.